You are listening to the Prosperous Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosperous Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Hi, welcome back. Greg McCollum here with Prosperous Law Podcast. As you know, Prosperous Law is a coaching company. It's designed to help primarily criminal defense attorneys, lawyers who own their own law firm. Today I would like to talk about numbers. And by that I mean numbers in your business. What are your numbers? Do you know your numbers? Or do you think you know your numbers? Do you have a system for keeping up with your numbers and checking your numbers? Or are you so busy in the grind and the whirlwind and the rat race of practicing law that you don't have time to even create numbers? Perhaps you see your financial numbers at the end of the year when you do your taxes. So at the end of the year you find out, oh, these are my numbers. These are my expenses. These are this is my revenue. It's good that you know them at some point because companies, public companies are required to release their numbers annually. I think they also are required by the Securities and Exchange Commission to give out those numbers so investors are aware of it. And so you get the quarterly reports. If you watch, the stock market news and stuff, people report on that. So large corporations, Fortune 500 companies, small businesses all over the world keep their numbers because it's their temperature gauge. They want to know what's happening in their business. Is their business growing? Is their business declining? Is their business moving sideways? Is the marketing that they're doing, is that working? Are they doing a good job for their customers and clients? In other words, do they have raving fans who want to or try to send them business? So it's important to know your numbers. If you look at a law firm and you say it has 6 or 7 parts to it, the 7th part being you and your mindset, so 6 parts of a business taking you out of it, numbers are one of those 6 parts. And it's a very important part for the reasons that I just stated. I remember, and I've practiced law, 30 years, and for the first couple of decades of that, I didn't really know anything more than how much money I made at the end of the year. When I did my taxes, then I would see it, and I would see if I had a profit or a loss on paper. I was able to add up how many new clients I'd gotten at the end of the year. I didn't break them down though the way I do now, because with me doing criminal defense, we break that down. We break it down in our accounting software in QuickBooks, where I can see how many what I call major felonies we did, how many major felonies, what the revenue is for major felonies. We also have a DUI side of our law firm, so I can see the revenue numbers for DUI, and then also what we call summary court or magistrate's court or misdemeanor court. And those are the big 3. And some other times things fit in another category. So I can look at those numbers and see those revenue numbers anytime I want to just by opening up my computer. And that's very helpful. And one of the things that it taught me is that the felony cases that we do is 50-60% of our practice. Now, even though we have a fairly robust DUI practice, in fact, if all we did was DUI and we were small and it was just me and an assistant or something like that, that would be the size probably of a pretty good DUI practice. And then if you added in the other magistrate's court charges or charges that often accompany a DUI, that would be pretty good. That would probably be a practice with one lawyer that's grossing over $500,000 a year. So that would be a good life in and of itself. The other thing I realized too is that in my area in Myrtle Beach, DUI is something that a lot of lawyers do, and it's something that the clients have a lot of choices on who they want to defend them on a DUI. And a lot of the lawyers, because of the way our system is set up, are pretty successful at that. Really, though, for the complete legal defense team, our sweet spot is really major felonies, because that narrows the field so much. If somebody is facing prison time or sex offender registry or things like that, those are the people that have a lot less choice in terms of what law firm can help them, who can they literally trust their life with. So the question I pose to you is, do you know your numbers? And if you have your numbers, then you know if you're growing, declining in revenue, or if you're literally going out of business. So what I've done and what I've established is I meet with my office manager, who's also a bookkeeper. She was actually a bookkeeper by trade. She had done office management as well, more so than I was aware of. So I really have found the perfect person in her, because she's a very competent office manager. She's very good with staff. She's very good at making decisions, and she's an excellent bookkeeper. And so my books finally are in the best shape they've ever been in. And I meet with her once a week for 30 minutes, and I keep notes and have a list of things that are going on in the business, projects that I want her to supervise, things that I want her to do, and also to look at the numbers. So the numbers that I get, I think I've got about 12 numbers on my sheet, which I have here. But the numbers that I would recommend that you look at, if you're a law firm, if you're a family court law firm, or you are a criminal defense law firm, or you could be any other kind of law firm, but what I would recommend you look at is, and keep up with this and see it weekly, how many new client files did you open that week? How many new client files did you close that week? What's your weekly revenue? What are your weekly expenses? What is your marketing spend? What's your ROI on your marketing spend? So in other words, what's your return of investment on marketing that you spend each week? How many calls did you get? How many potential new clients called your law firm or contacted your law firm to see if it's a good fit for you to represent them? And then also, whoever's doing the call or the meeting with those potential new clients, what's your close rate? What's your conversion rate? How many people that your law firm talks to become clients? And do you have any idea what that number is? Our goal is, I think it's 30%. In other words, we want to have 1 out of 3 people that contact us actually hire us, and us begin representing them to get paid, open a file, and they become clients. Because knowing that, then we know, for instance, if 30 people are calling us a week, and and 10 or 9 or 10 hire us, then in order to get more clients, we have to do something to have more people call us. And there's a little more to that, and I could talk about that at another time, because they have to be marketing to my ideal client. I have to be getting the right kind of people. But by knowing that, I know to increase our business, we have to have more people. We have to have more at-bats, as they say sometimes. So it's very important to know that. Now, the other thing is, I heard this, I think it was in a book I read, which was brilliant, and he talked about millionaires or the rich versus the very rich versus the middle class versus the working class versus the poor and homeless. And it said that the very rich have long-term plans. Their plans extend out 5 or 10 years. If you ask them where they should be or expect to be 5 or 6 years from now, they'll have a very definite plan. And that's the very rich. The middle class, they think monthly. Okay, what bills do I have due? How much money do I make? They have a monthly budget, so to speak. What's the monthly payment? What's my life like? For blue-collar people that are struggling to survive, their time frame is weekly. They get paid every week usually. They're waiting on their paycheck. They think week to week. So the very rich think in decades. The rich think yearly. Middle class thinks monthly. Blue collar economic situation, people in that kind of economic, just purely money economic class, often think weekly. And the homeless, the very poor, think day to day. In other words, how am I going to survive today? They're not really making plans. They don't have a mortgage. They don't have a car payment. They're not doing those things. So looking at it from that mindset and knowing that companies issue quarterly reports, and if you think about the ups and downs of business, sometimes looking at your numbers daily will drive you crazy. Even looking at your numbers weekly can be a little unnerving. So when I decided to create the reports, I had that conflict. So I was thinking, should I have the numbers? Should I just do numbers monthly? And I think I did that for some period of time. But what I do now is I get those weekly numbers. I know how much money we made. I know how much money we made in accounts receivable. For my numbers, because our law firm is growing and we have other geographic locations that we market in, I also see those numbers so I can compare them to, our home base, the location that's been around the longest versus new markets, and I can see, is our marketing working in those new markets? So I break that down. That's not something, if you're just starting to look at this, that I don't think you need to worry about that. Just try to get the numbers for your revenue. Now, in terms of looking at it weekly, the reason I do it weekly, even though it can cause me concern if we're having a bad week, the reason I do it weekly is and I also really focus on our monthly numbers, but I see the numbers weekly. So what this does for me, what it does for my law firm, is it's like a early warning sign. If the numbers crash, then I know it fairly soon. Now, the other thing that we do in our office is we have these whiteboards everywhere, and we put the daily number on the whiteboard. So if I walk through the office, I can see what we did that day. I can see what revenue we took in that day. So really, we look at that daily. But the weekly numbers are helpful because a number of times what has happened is those weekly numbers crashed. And so then at the time, my CEO, my COO, my chief operating officer, and now my office manager, bookkeeper, when those weekly numbers are bad for that week, in other words, let's say they're off 50%. They say they're off 70%. We're down 70%. So now what's going on? Usually when that has happened, as I've gotten a little better at this, I've discovered something was broken. In one instance, I think that inexplicably, Google had basically shut down my location. Other times, something had happened with the phone system, and the phones were literally broken, or the phone server or something like that had quit working. And so we were able to go in and look at that and frantically get on the phone with the people that we needed to talk to. Was able to get my Google site back up in less than 24 hours, and those kind of things. So it's an early warning sign. So if you look at those numbers weekly, it's not life or death, but you're going to know sooner to check some stuff to make sure that your systems are working. But don't get too hung up on the weekly numbers. Think more in terms of monthly numbers and quarterly numbers. And it also depends on what your practice looks like and how your clients pay and that sort of thing. If you have a hourly billing law firm, like most family court lawyers that I know of, it may just be that you've got all the fees in the escrow account, in the trust account, and your lawyers aren't billing, or your lawyers are submitting their bills and the person that's supposed to do the financial part of that isn't doing it for some reason. That versus a criminal defense firm where you're looking at bringing in new clients and new money, that's, I think, a lot easier to fix. And I think that everyone doing hourly billing, that's just so obvious that you're probably on top of that. However, it still helps to have those numbers because it's just an early warning sign. So if you're going to have your numbers, how do you have them? I remember I started with a law firm coaching program in 2013, and I didn't have any of this stuff. My law firm was really kind of a dysfunctional mess. And pretty early on in the coaching program, they taught us a whole weekend seminar on Know Your Numbers. So I got it. I understood. But what I found out is I couldn't know my numbers because my numbers weren't right, or I wasn't tracking it. And it's one of the most frustrating things I've ever been through. Now, this is 10 years later. This is 2024. And I constantly improve this. And every time we changed the way we took credit cards and we had it in our CRM, I think we've been using my case and trying to coordinate it and also have the bank account linked to our QuickBooks. So all the numbers are the same, because for years they just didn't match up, which drove me crazy. I think I went through literally 8 bookkeepers over that period of time. And it was extremely frustrating for me when I first started working on knowing my numbers. So if you start looking at this, just know that unless you've been doing it properly for all these years, it's not going to come quickly. It's a process, and when you start looking at knowing your numbers, couple of things you're going to find out, in my opinion. You're going to find out whether or not you even have a system to track those numbers and what it would involve to track them. But I also think when you try to track your numbers, and this is assuming that you have other employees and are not doing it all yourself, what you're going to find out is that some of the people that you rely on for this information are incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. And the sooner you find that out, the better off you will be. For me, this journey took a long time. I'm embarrassed, really, that it could even take this long. And I can't describe to you the level of frustration I felt, because I go to the seminar and I'm rah, woohoo, this is fantastic. I'm going to go back to my office. I'm going to fly back home. I'm going to go to my office and I'm going to implement this. And it just didn't work that way. I had spent decades screwing it up, and I couldn't unscrew it, in a day or a week or a month. Now, but I never gave up on it. I was persistent that I'm going to get this fixed. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how many people I have to hire. I don't care how many bookkeepers I have to go through. I don't care how many employees I have to deal with. I'm going to get this straight. And it's very comforting now. I'm very glad that I didn't give up on it. It's one of the major parts of my business. It's one of the major parts of any business, that you know your numbers. So you're going to go through that process. And if it's simple and you can push a couple of buttons and you have your numbers and they're correct, then you are so far ahead of where I was. And I would think you're so far ahead of other lawyers like you. And so if that's the case, pat yourself on the back, feel good about yourself, because you're really so far ahead of this idea, this game, this life process of what you're trying to do. If your numbers aren't right and you can't seem to see what's going on, or the numbers don't make any sense, I would just encourage you, don't get frustrated. Don't think you can fix this with a snap of your fingers. Just start leaning into it. And if you can get the number of files you open and the number of files you close, and that's all you know right now, or all you know or all you can figure out is how much revenue you took in monthly or something like that, start with that. You want progress, not perfection. Once you start doing some of this, if you fix some of it, then you can move on over time and get the other parts in there. The other thing I would encourage you to do is set a time of the week where you're going to meet with whoever's providing these numbers to you, and have them provide them to you in some type of meeting on a set day of the week at a set time. As I said, my meetings with Kelly, who does this for me, is we meet on Monday at 2:30. Every Monday at 2:30. I go in the office and I meet with her in person, and I like meeting with her in person because I like her and I like talking to her, and I'd like the in-person meeting. You could do it with a phone call. You could do it with a Zoom call. And look, if I'm on vacation, or on a cruise ship or something, then I'm not going to have the meeting that week. Now, chances are usually I'm going to speak to her at some point, or she's going to text me the numbers or some of these numbers. So it's not like you have to do this 52 weeks a year, but you have to do it regularly. You have to do it every week, unless something else is going on. So don't get crazy about that part of it. So is your law firm, is it a business? Does it run like a business? Does it run like a Fortune 500 company? Or is it chaos? Is it a chaotic mess? Is it something that you're proud of that gives you comfort? Does your law firm give you comfort and security and joy? Or does it create more problems in your life? Because if you're sitting there and you're thinking, really, owning a law firm sucks, nobody has any idea how difficult it is between managing the judge's expectations and the client's expectations, and also paying the bills and being a happy civil person and dealing with the stress that you deal with. I know a lot of lawyers that feel that way, and I certainly felt that way for years, if not decades. I loved what I did, but it was so difficult until I started running my law firm like a business. Now, I still have problems, I still have issues, but it's so much better. I'm so much happier. I'm so much more rested. There's order to my life. There's order in my law firm. And while my law firm is what I consider pretty small when I compare it to other law firms and other very successful lawyers that I know lawyers that have 8-figure law firms. I know lawyers that have multi-8-figure law firms, and some of these people have hundreds of employees and that sort of thing. So, and the more you have to be able to manage this. It would be impossible to manage a multi-8-figure law firm without these numbers. But it's also not that complicated, and it's achievable, and it's something you can do, and it will make your life better, and you'll be on your way to having less stress, more free time, and more peace of mind, which is something that we at Prosper at Law advocate for, can teach people to do, can help people start the journey to get their law firm where it's growing, it's profitable, and starts to serve them and help them professionally, and also help them in their personal life, because it gives them more time and less stress. So that's the numbers, that's the metrics. That's what I would encourage you to look at. That's what I would encourage you to think about. And then again, if you already have all this down, and this seems so basic and dumb almost that you can't believe that I'm even talking about it, then congratulate yourself. You're where you should be. You don't need this kind of help. But if you're like me, and like a lot of lawyers that I see and observe, it's something that you should do, you should think about doing, you should take some small steps at least to move in that direction, to give yourself just a better life. You went to law school for a reason, to serve people. When you went to law school, you probably never imagined that you would have these challenges and how difficult it could be. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is an answer. There is a solution. It doesn't come overnight, but it can be done. I've done it. I know other people that have done it. It's just a problem with a solution. So I would encourage you to start looking at your numbers and know your numbers to make your law firm less stressful and more profitable. Thanks for listening. If you want to know more, go to prosperatlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.